Yes. Hey, everybody. We are live for another Ask the Coaches. Thank you for joining us this Sunday as we're going to be talking about the power of rest. And as I told Coach Dr. Dominique, I'm like, this is so needed for me. It's funny how these things all get planned out months in advance. And it's like every time it hits true, like, oh, I need rest right now. So before we get started, anybody that is watching, please like, subscribe, and share because we want to continue to bring positivity to your newsfeed. And as always, feel free to leave comments, tell us who's watching, and have some questions because we love to answer those. So right now, Mike's he is getting ready for church. But thank you, Mike, for quickly checking on. And Nathan, hey Nathan. We appreciate you both being on. So, Dr. Dominique, before we get started, just a quick introduction about yourself.
Hello, everybody, and happy Sunday. I am Dr. Dominique or Dr. Simmons. I am a life coach. I'm also a varsity coach, and I work at a high school. Let's see, I do a lot of different things. I mentor youth. I mentor those who have, mental health challenges. Man, there's always struggle with this question. I should be good. I should be good at this by now, but that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah, she's awesome. That's how I describe you in a nutshell. But today we're going to talk about rest. And so, why I say it's so perfect for me is I am at a point mentally, I'm better. Physically, I'm not. But the reason why is because what I was telling you, my dog just had 9 puppies. So, we had a full night and into yesterday. And I got a little breather last night. I actually got some good rest, but still, it feels like I'm recuperating from it. So, to get started, let's just talk about what is the power, like, why is there so much power in rest and why is it needed?
For me, this is also a good topic for me because this is something that I struggle with. Probably not as much as what I used to struggle with, but for me, the power of rest is being able to pretty much stop because we live in a world that's go, 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 go. And resting for me is being able to stop, not feeling guilty for
Mhm.
stopping, and just being able to pour back into myself. It doesn't, for me, it's not always about sleeping
Mhm.
part of rest, but it's just being okay with like centering myself and just enjoying not having to do anything.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, that's what I see as the power of rest.
Okay, so let's talk about that real quick. Yes, there's a sleeping side, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the rest is just taking. For me, it's taking that time that it's a focus on you to like recuperate, like to like re-energize. And so I have somebody that I was talking to the other day, and he talks about in the morning that that's his quiet space, and that's his time to like fill his cup to rest in that moment. Um, what is the importance of that? Like, why do you think that mentally, and like you said, you're a life coach, but also you have a background in mental health work? Why is that important, and what happens if you don't do that?
Rest is so important because again, just going back to we're constantly go, go, go. So the mind is go, go, go. And eventually, if you don't rest, you do hit a wall. And, being a life coach and just a giver to other people, we all do it in some kind of capacity. You get to a point where you run empty, your tank is empty. And I always say you can't do anything for anybody else if you're not doing something for yourself. So, with the rest piece, it allows you to fill your tank back up. You have
Mm-hmm.
to, it allows you to get in a place where you're able to self reflect, get your mental back stable, is what I call it. Because again, you can't really give all of yourself or a lot of yourself to other people or even do certain jobs that you do, whether it's accounting or, being a business owner or whatever it is. You can't be your best at what it is you're doing if you're not allowing yourself time for yourself.
I agree. I agree so much in that. And Nathan has a question here. Is there such thing as resting properly? And technically, there is whenever you're talking about sleep. With sleep, you do want to have, and it also is dependent on age, but we recommend at least 7 hours of sleep. And some people are like, whoa, that's a lot, you know? So, and I think it's most important. Okay, so a lot of people, I have a background in exercise and health science. So, like food, exercise, 1, 2. No, actually, what I say is your sleep and water. Why is sleep so important? The reason behind that is if you don't get into the proper rims of sleep, your brain's like a dishwasher, and if you don't get the dishwasher cycle going, you still have a lot of things in there that needs to be cleaned out, and they're not. So you have dirty dishes in your brain. Just think of it that way. So, what happens in the long run? We know if you have poor sleep, that we know it's connected with anxiety and depression, but we also know it's with some mental diseases as well, like Alzheimer's. It has some correlations with lack of sleep. Like I said, depression is another one, that lack of sleep. So, resting properly is something, and usually resting properly is not needed with like additives or sleep suppressants. So that's something that people have to be very careful of. That a lot of the time is that they'll take like melatonin. Melatonin only just helps you fall asleep. It doesn't make you stay asleep. Or I hear people drink wine so that they can sleep good. But in the morning, how do you actually feel? Because I've even done it myself. I take a glass of wine so I'll fall asleep, but I'm not getting the full sleep that I need to. So that's something. What would you say to that about resting properly?
I definitely agree as far as resting properly as it relates to sleep. I agree with what you said. I would say resting properly when you're taking steps away or taking time away from something, it looks different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, resting would be not doing any, work for the day, but maybe getting out and doing a hike or going on a walk. For somebody else, that may not be considered
Mm-hmm.
rest. So I think resting properly outside of sleep is something that looks different for everybody, and it's to me it's whatever for you that's going to take you away from your everyday elements of working, the hustle and bustle, and all that kind of stuff.
And I think that's a really true statement that we need to talk about really quick, is that rest. Because for me, my rest is like other people are like, that's work. And so the part of not being judgmental in an aspect, that we all have our own ways and we all have our developed patterns that work best for us, and is what fills our cup in this aspect of it. So talk about the importance of what you do and not imposing it on others in some aspects. Because I found like spouses, I've heard spouses spat about how people should sleep at certain times, they should rest a certain way, and they should do things because that's what they've always known and always learned. So, in the importance of not imposing yourself onto others.
So my resting, one thing I had to learn is my routine is my routine and someone else's routine is their routine, and it's not up to me to say what you're doing is not right or my way is right, because again it goes back to it's different for everybody and
Mm-hmm.
however it's going to benefit you. But there are things that I need to do as a part of my rest that others may not do, like going back to in the morning devotion time. I want to read, I want to journal, then making sure I'm doing a walk every day or something like that. For somebody else, that could be too much, like having to read, do devotion, go on a walk. But I think that again, it's what's working for you and what's working for me, and me understanding that that's what helps you feel full, and then whatever I do is what helps me feel full.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's part. It's quieting the mind and just stopping and not having to think. Sometimes it's really because some people Netflix and chill, and that's okay. I feel like some people are like they have guilt on this stuff. So the part of resting properly and the power of rest is one with whenever we talk in rest in general, and rest being just calming their mind and kind of like filling your cup back up is what we're saying, like with energy wise. But then the power of rest with the power of sleep aspect. Now that one's a different one. How we're speaking about is there are recommendations that are for best practices. We know, but then we have people that are like, well, I only get 4 hours of sleep and I can live off of that. Let's talk about for a minute why it's important to kind of get more sleep, and especially for athletes. Let's go on that one too, because college years, I was a collegiate cheerleader, and you played basketball collegiate as well. So, we stayed up. Like, we did not get our sleep. We didn't eat right. We like all those things. So, the power of rest when it comes to that and for the body.
So yes, in college, my resting looked a lot different. I was happy if I got 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and I just, whatever. But now, as you know, I still train with everything going on with the situation. We won't have a season this season, but just thinking of this week, we started doing virtual trainings, like mandatory, pretty much. And so I'm doing six intense workouts out of 7 days, 7 day or
Mhm.
6 out of 7 for an hour apiece. And, I wanted to do one more. But my body, it's so important for me to rest my body, not only for my mind, but also for my muscles to heal properly and for my
Mhm.
muscles to be able to do what it is that I want them to do and for me to reach my goals. So I think as an athlete, because a lot of times I think it's easy for us to feel guilty because, oh, I got to smash these goals. I got to keep going, got to keep going. But then realizing that, if I do keep going, I'm risking myself for injury, probably, won't reach the goal, and the rest time is when our muscles are actually repairing, they're building. And that's when all the great things happen, not necessarily while we're working out. So for me, as an athlete, that's what rest would look like for me as an athlete, and being okay knowing that in the resting period, like, your body is still doing what it needs to do, and this is the most important time for me as an athlete.
And I think that is the, again, go back to the power of rest. It's a time to recoup and to like, and it's funny too. In everything, it seems pretty same. I guess I don't know how to say this exactly. Like with your exercise, like the rest period, even with just your daily life, the rest period, and how it all is a time and period whenever you can just recuperate and not only physically and chemically your body is repairing itself, but also mentally your body is repairing itself and being able to get where it needs to be. And that's again in the power of rest. So Mike says, my rest comes from working on old cars, which for me is a good relaxation. This is one of my things I actually love is that to making memories in the power of rest, which is kind of, I'm going to throw this one a little bit out here just because he put this comment up. My father's power of rest was doing the same things, working on old cars. But whenever he was resting, it was actually a time where he was his most like just calm state. And I learned so much from him because I was actually like right up under him learning how to work on cars at the same time. So it's really cool in that aspect too. And I know Mike does the same stuff as well. He helps his kids, his grandkids and stuff. But that's the thing is where I was really talking about how perceiving that rest is what it may look for somebody may not look for the others. Because for dad, it was his mind was not thinking about work, but it was thinking about something fun that he's doing, and then he gets to have a memory with a kid. And so I think that one's very big. And then love the early morning. That works for me. That's something too. We all have our own time periods too. There's actually, I cannot remember the doctor who it is, but there's one about your sleep cycles and where you actually fall in. Some people are morning, some people are afternoon, some people are later in the day, and just how your circadian rhythm. So circadian rhythms is how the body works. And we all have our own. We're finding out we're unique in that way too. And so let's talk about that for a minute. If you're an early bird, does that make you any better than a night owl? So let's go into that conversation.
I don't think so. Just because again, everybody has their thing. Like for me, I thrive in the morning. Like if you try to get me to do a workout in the evening, I'm probably gonna be struggling. But if you ask me to do it at 4 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it. So I don't, everyone's made uniquely different. So that's one thing, that I love and that I celebrate is that we don't all have to be the same and we all, thrive differently. So I don't think
Mm-hmm.
so.
How do you do that with your students or your athletes? Do you ever change things up where they can do things on their own timing?
So in the off season, they can do things on their own timing, but when we're in season, we usually start early morning just because we're battling with gym space, and then we'll
Yeah,
go from
true
early
statement.
morning to now we're in the evenings the rest of the season. And what I do notice with the athletes that probably thrive better in the morning, they struggle in the evening practices, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, but
can't.
all our games are at nighttime, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
No.
but
So does anybody have any questions while we're on here? Just let us know what are some of your questions about rest. What are some things like proper rest? What are some things to do? One cool thing that I talk about is our environment really facilitates us to be able to sleep or not. And one thing is lighting. So we know that yellow light is put in a lot of coffee houses, so that we can actually it wants us to go to sleep. Your phones are really cool because they have this feature that if you turn it on, it goes into night mode, and that will make your phone turn yellow because it actually secretes um, basically some things that make you want to go to sleep. Allows in it. So for that, let's talk about some key ways to get some proper rest. What are some of your maybe 3 main tips to getting ready to get proper rest when we're talking about sleep?
um 3 things for me. One would be there has to be a time of shutdown. That's
Mhm.
something that I implemented, especially during the quarantine. Actually, shutting down my electronics like an hour, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours prior, so that I'm not tempted and my mind's not going. Two would be, like you said, lighting.
Mhm.
Something that's big for me. I don't. I know some people sleep with TVs. I can't sleep with my TV on or anything like
Mhm.
that. Then the third thing is actually sounds. So I actually downloaded an app that has water sounds and wave sounds to kind of help me relax. So those are the 3 things for me that help me get proper rest or feel like I'm getting proper rest.
I'll say that's pretty close to mine is timing. We have a basically a schedule um, that we stay. My husband usually has to wake up at 4 a.m. So because he has to wake up so early, we usually go to bed around 8 or 9, and then from there, the lights. We don't have any TV. We only have one TV at our house. I laugh because growing up, it was like it was the bragging thing because I had like 15 TVs at our house. Like every room had either one TV or two. I'm like, now I'm looking back, I'm like, we have one, and we're only going to have one. My kids, they don't have them in the bedroom. That's what we do because the thing is that's a tempting space, and we think the bedroom should be designed just to sleep, um, or if you're married to have some fun. So, but some of those things that's what the bedroom is designed for. So, but the aspect of it is creating that space where we don't get distracted by a TV or we can't have conversations or talk. And then the other thing is for me is I listen to, y'all know that I'm of faith, but I have to listen to the Bible, which I don't know if that's good or bad because listening to scriptures makes me fall asleep, but that's what I do. I just love, and it's something where I'm not thinking per se. It's just an easy, like calm voice that allows me to go to sleep. And it's only people reading books to me. It's not like music. I want to stay up because I'm like, oh, where are we at? Like I make a story in my head. So it's interesting how people can be so different but so much alike with it at the same time. So, if you're watching, let us know, how do you go to sleep? What are some of your tips that you use, best practices that you have, so that you can get better sleep and maybe help somebody else? One thing I know people ask all the time is exercise. Should I exercise before I go to sleep? I don't recommend it, because but it's the other thing. Try it out. See if some people it pumps up, some people it goes down. I will say physiologically, it's going to bump you up. So, and then other one is like chamomile tea, some teas, seeing how that will do for people to help them to go to sleep. I think that you hit it nail, or like the biggest one is the TV and the light, because that is how the circadian rhythms of the body works. Is our eyes are made to be able to sense the light to know, hey, it's time to get up. Um, I live in the country, so I don't know how to talk about this, but city life. I remember I lived in Birmingham, and it took me a while to get accustomed to that because, like, the sirens and the noises and all that stuff. So I literally live like our neighbors are down the street. Like, we have a lot of room and we don't hear sounds. So for people that are near or close, like lives in apartments, like how would you recommend with that on helping with sleep and maybe blocking out noises and sounds and light?
So whenever I lived in an apartment before I moved, what I did, they have the curtains. I would use the curtains to kind of help with the lighting because sometimes the parking area lights would be shining into, the room, and then people pulling into their parking spaces. So I would use the dark curtains for that. And then still the same thing with the sound, the noise, but instead of playing it through a speaker, I would just put earbuds in my ear to kind of help. That's kind of how I did. That's how I did that same routine, just using different some different methods to help with some things.
And then also for anybody that does have kids, it is interesting too that kids actually need more sleep. So as you grow older, you typically need less sleep, but definitely for kids, depends on the age. It can be up to 11 to 13 hours, especially newborns, but that sleep, I will say for my kids, and we were actually talking, there was a group of moms, we were talking not too long about, like, if our kid doesn't have their nap, like how they act. Just to think about adults. If you don't get you're just a grown child but you don't, sometimes we're not as aware of our feelings on that. So how can people be aware that they don't have proper rest?
I think your moods can indicate proper rest. Your thinking, the process of how you think, just some physical things like maybe headaches, things like that. I think are good indicators of not maybe having enough rest. I know that some of the things for me, I usually get a headache. Not very patient, short tempered, kind of quick and short with people. My mental clarity is not really, its best. So I think paying attention to some of the physical, symptoms and things like that can help indicate if you're, not getting enough rest or getting enough rest.
And I think that's a good point. I want to pop up real. Barbara's watching. Thank you so much. And Miss Laura is as well. So appreciate y'all both watching. I am blessed to both have you. Those are actually both my grandparents. So grandmothers, I guess. Amazing women. And one thing I do want to talk about really quick that you just mentioned was in the aspect of sleeping, making sure again that it's individualized too, I think, and what will work for you, but making sure that you're aware of it and that you know it. And I didn't know this until, maybe a week prior to quarantine, I like wine. I love wine, but I got to a point that I was like, I need wine a little bit. And I was drinking one glass a week, but I could tell that I was wanting it to like get mental clarity, to help to stay focused on things instead of just to kind of quiet my mind, because sometimes it goes too much. So I was like, okay, I'm leaning in too much on this one. So I stopped and I was like, okay, no alcohol for me. But I will tell you, the other day, I was so exhausted. I felt hungover in the morning. I was like, and if I had not had, and I had no alcohol. So what it was the lack of sleep. And so I don't know how many people have ever felt it before, but you just need sleep so bad that you literally feel sick and you have this hangover feeling to it. And so those are some of the symptoms, and being aware. For me, I wouldn't have been aware because I'd masked it. I could have masked it with something else. So I think that's the importance too, is making sure that we don't mask our feelings with other things and taking time to even reflect and realize. And journaling, like you said, journaling is a great way to have a rest journal. If you don't want to have a rest journal, I don't like to write per se. I'm a talker. That's the reason why we do these, and I don't write as many blogs. And so the fact is maybe get your phone out and just record yourself on how you feel, so you can look back on it and finding ways that work for you. So any questions about rest while we're on here? I know we are a little bit past our time, but want to make sure, great conversations, and we do appreciate everybody that has joined us. And again, we're talking about the power of rest and its importance. And also with rest, we're talking about sleep, but we're also talking about just quieting your mind and finding your space to what we talk about, filling our cup up, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And that is our soul and our purpose and our drive, that a lot of us probably feel exhausted right now. So thank you so much. Mike says that he's got to go to church, but we love you as well. And I hope that you have an awesome and blessed day. And again, thank you for everybody that joined on and watched. And we will see you, actually will be Monday And we will be continuing the series of Surviving Quarantine by Spreading Life. We have a great lineup next week. Mondays will be Brian Kelly. And then Tuesday, if anybody's engineers or anything, we're going to be talking about the power of EQ, which is emotional intelligence. That one's going to be really cool. And I can't remember the rest of the schedule right now, but I'll pop it up again. But I just know it's an amazing lineup. I'm excited to continue it. And then again, on Sundays, we will be doing ours at 5 o'clock, continuing this series on Ask the Coaches. And I'm blessed to have an amazing coach like Dr. Dominique on. I will throw up, if anybody is interested, again, we have the Give Back to You. We are limited time. We're ending it at the end of the month. So, but if you are interested, you can still talk to Coach Dominique for free. We've waived all fees as we're continuing this quarantine series. Just, it's our give back because we know we need it. So if we need it, we're pretty sure other people need it. That's what we're saying there. Or if you just want to go directly to Coach Dr. Dominique, it is www.worksby.com/Coach Dominique, not Dr. Dominique, but even though she is has her doctorate. So, and finally, like, subscribe, and share as we continue to bring positivity to your newsfeed. Final thoughts, Dr. Dominique.
Final thoughts. The biggest thing I will say is when it comes to the power of rest, outside of sleeping, is to make sure that you're scheduling time to rest. A lot of times we just go, but we never schedule time to actually rest. So I don't want to say challenge you, but I encourage you all this week maybe to schedule some time of rest in your days and see how that helps you with working on getting some rest.
Yay. Well, I appreciate you so much, Dr. Dominique. And again, appreciate everybody that tuned in and watched. We hope you have an awesome and blessed week ahead. See you next time.